We're always taught that the invention of farming was, like, humanity's greatest leap forward, right? It's the foundation of literally everything we call civilization. But what if that whole story is wrong? What if the big shift to agriculture was actually our single biggest mistake? It's a pretty wild idea, so let's get into it. I mean, just look around you. We live in a world of, well, casual miracles. It's nuts. We've decoded our own DNA. We've sent robots to Mars. And yet, for all that genius, why are so many of us struggling? Why are we plagued by chronic illness, anxiety, and just deep, deep inequality? It's this huge paradox that really defines modern life. And this, right here, this is the great contradiction of our time. We can make more calories than ever before in history, but somehow malnutrition is still a huge problem. We've got instant global communication, but our societies feel more fractured and unequal than ever. It really seems like for every amazing leap forward we make, we create a new, super complex problem for ourselves. It's kind of like we're running an ancient operating system on brand new hardware. So to even begin to solve this puzzle, we have to think way bigger than just the last couple of centuries. The whole idea we're digging into today suggests that the seeds of our modern problems, well, they weren't planted during the Industrial Revolution. They were planted thousands and thousands of years earlier, around the exact time we first started planting actual seeds in the ground. So, okay, what was life actually like during that other 99% of human history? Let's take a trip back in time, back to the world before farming. I mean, this timeline is just staggering when you really look at it. If you crammed all of human history into a single day, we've only been farmers for about the last 30 minutes. Think about that. It means for pretty much our entire existence, we were something else entirely. Our bodies, our brains, they were all shaped by a world that had no fields, no cities. We have this picture in our heads of our hunter-gatherer ancestors, right? Constantly struggling, just trying to survive. But the archaeological evidence, it tells a totally different story. Turns out they had this incredibly varied and nutritious diet, which actually made them more resilient to famine. And because they lived in these small, mobile groups, they weren't as vulnerable to the kind of massive epidemics that would later just tear through our cities. And how do we know this? Well, our ancestors left us a record, literally written in their own bones. There's a whole field called paleopathology, and it's all about studying ancient skeletons for clues about their health. And the verdict from these bones is, well, it's surprisingly clear. The very first farmers were on average shorter, sicker, and died younger than the hunter-gatherers they replaced. It's pretty shocking. So, this is the central mystery, isn't it? If life was actually better before, why on earth did we ever pick up a plow? Well, the thing is, it wasn't a conscious choice for a better life. It was more of a slow, creeping gamble, a bet that would completely change the destiny of our species forever.
Now, it's so important to get this. This wasn't a single event. There wasn't some big meeting where all of humanity voted to become farmers. Nope. It was a slow, almost invisible process that happened all over the globe independently. It was this gradual trade-off, right? You give up mobility and a varied diet, and in return, you get to settle down and have a surplus of food. And that one trade-off, it would remake our entire world.
And here's that trade-off in stark detail. You swap this really diverse diet for a really monotonous one. You're basically putting all your bets on a single crop, like wheat or rice. And if that crop fails, you're facing starvation. At the same time, you trade wide open spaces for crowded villages, where, let's be honest, sanitation is awful, and diseases can just leap from person to person, and from livestock to people with terrifying speed.
So, we're back to that big question, why? Why would anyone accept this terrible bargain? The answer is brutally simple, and it has absolutely nothing to do with progress or happiness. Farming's one single great advantage was that it could support more people on less land. It wasn't a choice for a better life, it was a choice that simply enabled more life. Just to put that in perspective, for hundreds of thousands of years as hunter-gatherers, the entire human population on planet Earth probably never got above 10 million people. Just try to imagine the population of New York City, but spread out across every single continent. That was our entire world. And the result of that gamble? Today, it's 8 billion. So, from a purely evolutionary perspective, you have to admit, farming was an unbelievable success. It let our species just multiply exponentially. But, and this is a huge but, for the average person actually living through that transition, life got a whole lot harder and a lot less healthy.
Okay, so how does this ancient gamble affect us, right here, living in the 21st century? Well, the thing is, the problems that were born from that very first harvest, they haven't gone away. Not at all. They're the echoes of that massive transition, and you can still hear them loud and clear today.
This quote just completely reframes the whole story. It suggests that we didn't domesticate wheat. Wheat domesticated us. I mean, really think about that for a second. We cleared forests, we diverted rivers, we dedicated our entire lives to helping this one plant spread across the globe. From wheat's point of view, it was a brilliant evolutionary strategy. We basically became its global workforce.
And this had a massive domino effect on human society. For the very first time, you could store food, which created the concept of wealth. Suddenly, that wealth needed protecting, which, hello soldiers. It needed to be counted, which led to scribes and rulers. All of a sudden, a tiny elite could live off the labor of thousands and thousands of farmers. This was the blueprint, the very beginning of class division and social hierarchy.
And these ancient echoes, they've become the defining problems of our modern world. That original reliance on a few starchy crops, that's our modern struggle with things like diabetes and heart disease. The invention of a food surplus that's controlled by just a few people, that's the absolute root of modern wealth inequality. And that decision to live crammed together in dense settlements, well, that created a vulnerability to pandemics that we are, as we all know, still grappling with today.
When you boil it all down, it's about a fundamental mismatch. Our bodies, our DNA, were forged in the Stone Age. But we live in a world built by farmers and later, engineers. And so many of our modern struggles, from our physical health to our social structures, they're just the echoes of that ancient and totally irreversible choice.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. We are in the middle of our own great transition right now, the digital revolution. And just like the agricultural revolution, it promises all this connection and abundance, but it's also a huge gamble with consequences we really can't foresee. So the question is, what echoes are we creating right now for the people who will be living 10,000 years in the future? What will they say about us? Thanks for tuning in.